I'm Hilary, a mom in Oklahoma, and I am ready for summer reading, but not summer weather.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who is roasting.
This is the Don't You Two Read podcast, and hi, we're so glad that you're here. So yeah, we're not in summer officially, but in unofficially it is summer, and I don't like it, guys. I don't like summer. Do you?
No,
It's not good.
it's just, I don't feel like I enjoy the summer activities. And I think that's why I don't enjoy summer as much as I do like fall and winter. Like swimming or sprinklers or the beach. Like, I don't typically like those activities.
Yeah. I'm okay with that stuff, but it's like 100 degrees. I don't like feeling like my skin is being roasted.
Yeah.
And that's what we're at. So, I mean, we are nice weather, and then all of a sudden, like from one day to the next, it was like 70, and then it's like 100. So, yeah, here we go.
It do be that way.
But I'm already counting down. My Instagram knows it's like, "Oh, did you know there's only 12 more Saturdays until Halloween or whatever?" I'm like, "Yes."
Mine is like that for Christmas. It's like 39 more Mondays or something. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, probably less than that now. We're getting there. So, yeah, I'm like I live in fall and then dreaming of fall. So, but we're going to make it through. So, okay. Today we're going to talk about another trope, and apparently this was like very popular or to talk very popular topic. We're going to talk about age gap romance or just age gap books, whatever. Age gap tropes.
What are your thoughts? You start. What do you
Okay.
consider an age gap?
I guess that's the first question. What is an age gap? And then what we think about it and all sorts of stuff. Okay, I'll be honest. I know Hannah asked everyone, like, what do you consider an age gap? That was her first question. And then I was really surprised, um, which she'll talk about the answers later. But I don't know. I guess I'm just like a big dope because, well, first of all, I will say I read romance, but I don't read like a ton of romance as like some people. I feel like a lot of people, that's the majority of what they read. That's not me. So I don't I don't know. To me, in my mind, I think of age gap almost as like a generation. Like like me dating someone that would be like my dad's age.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's how like what my first instinct.
Like 20
And
years. Like a
yeah.
like a parent age.
Yeah.
Okay. Like the Parent Trap.
Yeah, yeah, like
Where she's
Meredith
like,
Blake.
"Oh, she could be my sister." Not like, like
Yeah, she's 12 years older than the child
yeah. Mm-hmm.
to where I'm like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first instinct in a book. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then apparently that's not what most people think. So what do you think?
I mean, I think for me, my gut answer is not necessarily a year number, like a numerical number. It would probably just be like a season of life, maybe. Like if they are in completely different seasons of life, then I would
Yeah,
consider that an age gap.
I that was something else I thought of too, was like it just depends. Like
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the context because like if we're talking about, I don't know, let's say a 45-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman,
Mm-hmm.
like, but let's say I'm just gonna make up something ridiculous. Like he was married and she died and he's was at war in the military and just got out. I don't know. Like they're both don't they neither one has kids, neither one is, you know what I mean? Like that
Mm-hmm.
might feel different to me versus he's 45 and he has a 15-year-old daughter
Yeah.
and then she's 25. Or I don't know. Or does that make sense? Like, or he has like an 18-year-old daughter or a 20-year-old daughter. He could have any of those and it's not crazy. Um, and then now we're talking about he has adult children or teenagers and she's like, I really want to have a baby. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is
Yeah.
These are just a big difference. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think something I noticed a lot, and I don't know, I'm not an author, okay? I feel like sometimes authors see like hot topics or like hot tropes, and so then it's like you advertise or market for them, but then it may not actually be like a main thing in the book. So like marketing an age gap, and then you read it and they're like 4 years apart, and it's not
Yeah, I
really
don't get
part of the
that.
story. And I, so,
You know what's funny? Oh wait, you haven't read it. I saw people talking about The Simple Wild and they're saying that's age gap. And I was like, "What?" And I
what's the
looked it
age?
up. I looked it up and I want to say like you said they're like 4 years apart maybe. And I was like, "In what world?" I mean, okay, I say that, sorry, because I know some people disagree. In my world, 4 years is not age gap. I mean, maybe if you're like 13 and 17,
Yes. And that is something I
so
think
middle
that
school.
has to come into play. Like if we're
Yes, of
talking
what
age
if we're
gaps,
talking about adults.
and I also want to say if you are in a age gap relationship, like you yourself, like that's totally fine. Okay? I'm supportive of you loving who you want to love. And you do that.
If you're an adult,
Yeah, if you're an adult, exactly.
both
So,
adults.
um, so everything that I'm talking about is just fiction related. Fiction
Yeah, no,
related.
yeah, for
So
real. I wanted to introduce that too, but you
yes,
go ahead.
just fiction related. That I mean, I don't know. I think age gap, like you said, so 4 years. If you're talking about like a 17-year-old and a or a 16 and 20 or 17 and 21,
Hmm. Or like
then
12 and 17, and you're like, 5 years is a long time.
it's not great, guys. For me, it's not great.
Well, I mean, like, we don't want to read about romantic feelings of a 12-year-old with a 17-year-old
No.
because you're like, wow, that's
Mm-mm.
gross. But if we're talking about a 32-year-old and a 37-year-old, totally different.
Right, for sure. Totally different. And then something else I was thinking was like, so there was a book I read that sticks out to me that was YA, and actually it might have been new adult. So I don't know. But anyway, Attached at the Hip. You probably remember that.
Hmm.
I hated that
Yeah.
book. And part of the reason why I hated it so much was because, and I had a whole note, so I had to go through my files about the age gap, how this was like a thing in the book that a character, she was in high school. She was 18, so I did have a note. She was 18, but she was still in high school, senior, and she was in love with her high school coach. And she was like, well, it's fine because she's only 21. Like she said, her coach is only 21. And that her coach seemed to also like reciprocate the feelings. Um, so she was like, yeah, it's no big deal. I'm 18.
And it was presented like it was cool.
Yeah. And then later she was having a crush on someone who was on the show who was 25 years old. And she's like, it's fine.
Mm,
And so to me, it gets into sometimes the age gap. It depends on the age. And also, I think sometimes it also can bring in power dynamics with an
hmm
age gap. Not always, but
hmm
sometimes where it's like a boss and an employee.
Or
Or,
if we're talking about teacher, then that's
yes.
illegal now. Like we're talking about a crime.
Well, like let's talk about a professor, like at college. You could have that and it's an adult student.
Yes.
Or a
Which
nanny.
you know, which you know that is the one of the few things I feel like I struggle with
Yeah,
where I'm like, ooh, gross. Like it's not the age as much to me as it is the position. But like you
exactly.
said, like first of all, if you're in high school, it's a teacher. Now it's a crime. So we're not
Right.
talking about love. We're talking about a crime, which again, I'm sorry for anyone who we offend, but I mean, that is the law.
Right.
The law is like if it's a teacher and it's a someone in a high school, it's a crime. So that was one book I thought of with Frieda McFadden, the teacher,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
not a romance. That's why I was saying I didn't know if we are just talking about romance, but I had some that were not romance.
That's fun because I was going to ask about that.
Yes, the ones I
Okay.
was thinking of, a lot of them were not romance. That's it's about the teacher, and it's funny because when I first started listening to it, I was like, I did not know it was going to be about this, and obviously, if you read the synopsis, you're like, yeah. That's what it's about. It's about a teacher and a student, and it's a
Mm.
thriller, so things go awry very bad. Like it's not a romance,
Yeah.
but it is. I mean, it's funny the way like you hear the justification from both sides. Like you're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, he's so nice, he's so sweet, he thinks about me, whatever. And but it's still a crime. And then another book, which is not a romance at all. I don't know that anyone listening to this has read this, but it's My Dark Vanessa, which is more of a literary fiction novel, and that's about the relationship of a high school student and her teacher, and that is not presented in a good light at all. It's a story about abuse. So like 30 years. And so she's talking about the story of it and then how eventually the man is convicted and everything. Like, but it's like her story through that process. So it's not a fun read. It's not an easy read. However, I did appreciate how it did not glorify this, like, this is just so he was like the sexiest older man. She was like, no, he was not attractive. It was just about the power, like how he made me feel important or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting, like a little twist, something we haven't, that was not, I guess, addressed maybe with the listeners, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I don't think any of the listeners mentioned anything in that regard.
Well, you just think age gap, good. But I'm like, sometimes I'm just giving a different perspective. Obviously, I don't think that lady was advertising as age gap romance for that book.
I mean, I think that there is a lot of my judgy side maybe brings like where I'm like, okay, when do we see it? Like if like the book I talked about with the YA, like do high schoolers should they be thinking like this is a healthy relationship? I don't think so. And then something
Yeah.
else interesting that I was watching a video you shared with me of this lady who was talking about just like books and the content that is in YA books. And she
Hmm.
mentioned how like the YA fantasy is just all old men. And like, I mean,
Yeah, that's the other thing to discuss is fantasy.
yes. And so, like, I mean, whatever, the Edward Bella situation where the guy is hundreds of years old, but he, of course, is young and good looking. And then the girl is always like 17.
Human,
Yeah,
yeah. Or
17,
like
18.
Akatar, she's like 19, 18.
Yes. Very coming of age.
And the guys are like 500.
Yeah, and we talked about it a lot during Twilight where it's like,
Why did you how have you lived this long and you're finding a 17-year-old like the most beautiful person ever?
yeah,
Like
or
why
like,
don't you find women your
yes,
own age?
or like you're finding yourself mostly mentally compatible with a
A 17-year-old,
17-year-old.
yeah.
So that's just me being stuffy and old, but it is a
I don't
point.
like it won't make me not read it, I'll be honest.
No, I'll still read it and enjoy it, but it is an interesting point that it's like, ew, that there are
Hmm.
the interesting power dynamics that are being put into our literature and
Especially for
romanticized.
kids.
Yeah, and for females. And that also brings up the reverse age gap, how that
Yeah, we
is
don't see
a thing.
500-year-old women
No,
with 17-year-old boys.
boys. Yeah, because we would probably all say, "Oh,
Yeah,
gross."
that's gross.
Hmm.
And I think that leads into, I'm like, here I go. That leads into like I think a society, this view of like men, the older they are, at least right now, we're like the more attractive they become. Or
Mm-hmm.
like the even the terms you're like, oh, he's like a silver fox, or he's you see like leads sometimes that are gray, or they talk about the guys are graying. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like in a good way. It's not like in a negative way. It's like, oh, he's going gray, he's whatever. These
Mm-hmm.
aging things that are good, but they aren't often said for women, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
women aren't necessarily glorified for being older. They're glorified for like the young woman, like
Mm-hmm.
young, innocent, just I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then for men, it's the opposite. It's like, oh, you get better with age.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also women are reading these, and women don't want to usually read about like boys,
Yeah.
a 17-year-old
That's true.
boy.
Like as we're discussing all of this, I'm like, this took a turn.
People are like, this is not what we came to listen to, guys.
But okay, but so let's talk about age gaps though in romance. Like what
Hmm.
in a romance. So for me, there's been a few that I have not enjoyed. Little things. So like okay, one that
Because of
came to mind,
age.
yes, part of your world, that was age gap.
How
And
long, how many years were there? Like 8, 10?
uh man, see, I don't know. I know that it felt she was older. And the
I want
only
to say it's
reason
like 10 or something.
yeah, I think it was like, yeah, it was probably 8 or 10. Like she was in her 40s and I think he was in his 30s. And she just kept bringing it up and she kept thinking about it and like
Hmm.
ruminating on it. So like she made it a thing, which makes it age gap trope. Because again, if we're not talking about
That's the
age gap,
topic.
then it's like, because I thought that I was like, well, I don't mind if we're not talking about it. But I'm like, well, then it's not really an age gap. So, and then she called him, what did she call him? Pretty boy? Or like what would she call him? She would call him something that was like
She would
a
just act like he was her little toy.
yes.
Like, you're just someone I sleep with for fun, and that's what you are. And he was like, "Hey, I'm mature." But it's funny because he was like in his 30s, like you said. He wasn't like,
He was more mature and stable than she was. So,
yeah.
and then okay, so that was one. And then another one I thought of that I told you about recently where I don't even think it was an age gap to me. Like she was 20, I believe she was 23 and he was 20, maybe 8, 28 maybe. But like the whole time, and I DNF'd it, the whole time in the beginning, the setup, he was like, he made a comment to her how he's like, shouldn't you be in school? Like he thought she
Oh,
was in high
yes.
school. And then, so I
Yes.
was like, ew, like, why do we need to have that? And then it continued, like, there were maybe two, three more comments about it, how she looked so young. And I was like,
Then
I
what are you
don't
doing with her?
I don't need that. I don't want that in a romance. She can look young, but why are you thinking she's in high school? And then you're like he felt bad for thinking that she was so attractive while thinking she was in high school. And she's not, but again, why? Why are we making it gross? Don't like.
Okay. The another book, this is one of them I'm bringing that I did read for myself, maybe like a 2 years ago or so. It's called The Duke Alone by Christi Caldwell. This is a closed door regional romance. And I knew there was like an age gap because they make a big deal. However, there's another point because we see it in fantasy, but we see this a lot in regional books of this age gap. This one, the guy was 30 and the
Oh no.
girl, when we start the book, the girl's 17, but she
Oh.
turns 18 in the book. So nothing happens at all until she's past 18, but she's 17 for a lot of the book. So there's a 12 year. And again, it's closed door. And it's not like this super lustful sexual book at all. And they're basically in the same season of life. But again, and one of my ratings is I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was like Christmassy and regional. I said, but she was really immature. But then I was
Mm,
like, but she's 17 or 18. Like,
mm.
of course she's going to be more immature. Like, she's 17, he's 30. We're talking a huge level of maturity.
I don't like that. I mean, I know times were different in like the
It was
Regency
it was
period,
noteworthy,
but I
and
don't
people
like
rated it
it.
badly because of that.
Okay, but here's where my brain is, and here's my context. And again, guys, don't judge me. Go ahead, judge me. That's fine. I can accept it. I am, for context, I am 31, and when I see a 17-year-old boy, or
Hmm.
even if we want to say girl, I see a child. Like I don't see a man. And that's just my own opinion. Like I know that there are books and they'll be like, "Oh, like they can describe him as a man, whatever." But like I just don't. And so then that puts it in a weird thing. Like a 30-year-old man with a 17-year-old girl. I'm like, I don't see a 17-year-old looking like an adult. Like to me they look like
Hmm.
a kid. So it just gets gross to me. I'm sorry.
Okay, another one that this one you're gonna have even more of a problem with.
Oh no.
I read this one. I can't tell you how long ago I read this. This was before I was like really reading a lot. I want to say I read this like 8 years ago, but I remember it. I can tell you right now. Um, It's called On the Island by Tracey Garvis Graves. Um, this book came out, it looks like 13 years ago, so a long time ago. This is a book about it's like rich family and they have this 17-year-old, I believe, I think 16, 17-year-old son, and he needed a tutor and whatever. So
No, no,
they
no.
hire again, this is the reverse, a 30-year-old English teacher. So they give her a job tutoring, and of course, there's a plane crash, and these two are stuck on an island for years. Years.
Well, what do you do? There's no one else there.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm verifying. Yes. 17-year-old student. He had cancer. It had gone
Oh
into remission.
no.
It got into remission, but they needed him to catch up with school. So they hired the 30-year-old teacher, and she's single, obviously. And but they're stuck on the island
What
for,
is this? Romance?
yeah, but it's closed door. It is closed door.
So
But it's
what
also like
happens?
Survivor.
Yeah, what happens?
I mean,
They
there's a relationship years later. But they are stuck on this island for years. So nothing like as which we had talked about this briefly. Nothing happens when he's a minor or anything.
hmm
Like they're stuck there, like they're the only two people on this island for years. But it does give you that like you're like I don't know because whenever they crash, she's like he's in braces.
Oh
He is
no.
a teenager and she does not see him that way at all. She's like he's a kid. But as
Yeah.
years go on, I mean, he's obviously growing up into a man. It's very confusing. I did enjoy the book, but now, like, I don't know if I would enjoy it now as a
Well,
mother. I don't
yeah,
know.
that
I don't know. Okay, I did enjoy it. I will say this, but it did feel taboo, if that makes sense. Like
I
she made a
mean,
taboo
yeah.
subject, but made it okay. It's not like anything happened while he was like 17 with braces and everything, but it felt taboo. It definitely felt like, ooh, because then what do you say whenever, like, if you have to tell his family, like, oh, we're together, are you, it's kind of embarrassing, or there's that embarrassment factor.
Oh no. I just wow. But see, that does make you think.
Now I'm gonna have you read this book. You're just like, oh wow.
Okay, somebody said that this one that they were that this book that they loved, that the girl was 16, he was 28, and they had to force separation because he knew he had feelings for her at the time and that they were wrong. So they were friendly, but nothing happened until 10 years later. So, but why
Yeah.
why does a 28-year-old like a 16-year-old? I have problems with this.
Yeah, and but well, I'm just wondering too and how it's presented because like I said, this one it's presented like, ooh, this is a taboo topic, but I'm gonna try to handle it with it's a gray
hmm
issue. But we know it's taboo. In that case, I don't know how it's presented. Like we said, are we like, ooh, this is taboo? I don't know. Or they're like, how romantic. This is amazing. To me, how it's presented too does
hmm
make a difference.
That's
And
true.
there is a difference too. You're like, this is the only man I'm gonna ever see again. And we
Yes,
literally survived a plane crash,
the
and this is it.
trauma.
We're
Yeah,
done. Like we're the only two humans out here for
yeah.
years.
I do judge
There,
less. Yeah,
so we're talking about two different topics. I
for
don't
sure.
know.
Yeah, I get that. And I think it's also different, like, if someone, and I don't know who's reading it, but I'm like, if someone younger was reading this, this example, not this, but like an example where it's romanticized, then I think it could be more damaging than like the island scenario, you know? I don't know.
But, and then I don't know what you're going to say next, but I was going to say on the other side, in real life, the reason I think they made that is what we would call a reverse age gap because it's a woman, but why are we calling it that? That's weird. But it would be, I think we'd have different feelings if it was a 17-year-old girl in braces and, this student, and then it was a 30-year-old man. Like, would we
Mm-hmm.
feel different about it? Probably. I would
Mm-hmm.
think so. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we talk about that. I feel like we talk about that often.
Hmm.
The sexism in general that we see in books. Like it's there. And just in life, I guess, like it's
But I guess we
definitely.
see it less predatory, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see it often, though. I will say that, though. You don't see women, like I just said earlier, you don't see a lot of books of 30-year-old women with 17-year-old boys. Like, boys feels weird.
Because we think it's gross. The readers would
Yeah,
probably think
yeah.
it's gross.
You're supposed to be like, ew, that's kind of awkward.
Okay, so since I've already said I feel like a million things I hate about age gap. One area that I feel like I really like it, which again, I don't think we're talking huge age gap because I don't think I've read that many that are like, oh, this like Hillary's. I don't have any that stick out to me like those, okay? So the only ones in vague general, like I don't have a specific book, but I feel like age gap normally comes into play with a brother's best friend dynamic because a lot of times you'll have and again it gets into the seasons where like
Like an older brother.
yes, if the brother's older and they're like in college and then the girl is maybe in high school and she liked him like growing up and he didn't have any interest in her because he's just, she's just the little sister who's hanging around all the time. And then later he's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, she's
Hmm.
not the little sister like that
I
I
feel like
thought."
that's
I
like
love that.
Love in Other Words, maybe
Mhm.
by Christina Lauren.
Oh, no, I'm trying to think.
They like grow up, they're family friends, but
Yes,
I think,
yes.
do you know what I'm talking about? Like he goes off to
Yeah.
college, I think. Yeah.
There's a bunch that I can think of that fall under this, and I like it. I think it works. And I think that's part of it too, where it's like, oh, they didn't see that. Like the younger one, I allow it because I'm like, you're younger. Like it makes sense if you're crushing on an older person, either way. But like, I don't like if the older person is crushing on the younger person. Then it's just, if they are minors, I'm like, ugh,
Right.
don't love it.
Yes.
So I am fine with it if it's like, oh, as they age, they don't see them like that anymore. And it doesn't feel creepy and it doesn't feel gross to me. Like there's definitely a way that it can work um, for me. But I don't know that I've had like a purely age gap. Like we're talking big age gap. I don't know that I've had that
I haven't,
much.
I mean, those are the only two I could think of, but they were not, they also weren't like typical contemporary romances either, you know? One was Regency and one
Mm.
they were crashed on an island. So
Yeah, that's
I
like,
don't
and then
know.
your other one was a teacher, which was like a
Which is
thriller.
an inappropriate, yeah, inappropriate relationships. The other two I thought of that were also thrillers were Verity, barf. I that my one of my most hated books. And then what's that book? You and I both read it by Riley Sager.
Oh yeah, the only one left.
Yeah, The Only One Left. That one kind of felt like that to me. Oh, and The Housemaid by Frieda McFadden, another one. But you have this young, innocent girl moving into this house with this older man, always viewed positively, but you're like, hmm, they're like it's noteworthy. But it's a thriller. It's not like this. I like I said, I don't read a lot of them, but I know a lot of the people you asked had a lot of different ones.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I think
Not a lot that I had read
a
though.
lot, well, okay. That's the thing too, is that what people define as age gap is
Oh
so
yeah.
wide.
Talk about that because I said mine was like huge.
Okay, there were a lot of people that said 7 years. I don't know why. That's
Hmm.
interesting. Seven was common, and then 10 was very common too. Like a lot of people said 10, has to be 10. And then seven was also a common answer. Um, some people said they hate if it's labeled age gap and it's only 3 years.
Yeah, that is wild.
Um, and then someone else said, I think it has to be more than 10 years, but it gives me the ick. Yeah, and then so a lot of people said 10 and a lot of people also said 10, but I think it's gross. So I don't know.
But on the other one, a lot of people said neutral
Yes.
to like it. So a lot of people really like
Almost
it.
almost 60% said neutral, 23% said positive, and then so an equal amount said positive and negative, and then neutral was the
So
biggest.
83% of people would be like, sure, yeah, I'll read it, or I would
Mm-hmm.
want to read it because of that.
Yeah, most people were down for age gap.
Okay, this is not a book, but one example of age gap romance that I loved, not in a book, is on Friends, Monica and Richard.
Oh yeah.
They have, I mean, a big, and that is part of their trope. It's like he
Mm-hmm.
was their dad's friend, which at first they address it and you're like, ooh, that's weird. Like he would hang out with her dad. They would go to
Yeah.
golfing, and that was her dentist growing up as a child. It was weird at first. But as the show continued on, they really did work. Like it worked.
Yeah.
However, they broke up because she was like, I want to have kids. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't. My kids are grown. This is not going to work. So it was not a successful age gap romance, but I did enjoy it. They made it work more. I don't know that there's a that's the thing though. It's hard to have a happily ever after in those situations because I think that was very realistic. We're like, how do you find common ground?
Yeah. It's hard to have like a traditional happily ever after, I guess.
Yes, like someone in real life, like Monica and Richard would have to either break up
Mm-hmm.
or Richard's like, okay, I'll just have a kid 25 years later.
Or she would have to
Or,
be like, I'm not going to have kids.
right, I'm not going to have kids and I would rather just marry you.
Mm-hmm.
Which we do see later in this series. Richard's like, never mind, I'll have kids. And she's like, too late. I already fell in love with someone else. So
Yeah,
tragic.
I know.
But
So sad.
it was done well. So I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, I think it can work without
Mm-hmm.
being gross and creepy. But
Mm-hmm.
Monica, they made it very clear. Like these feelings started for her when she was like 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how, and we never saw them grow up together. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Just points. Food for thought.
Someone said that. It's fine if they're not young anymore, but she's like, we don't need to hear
Hmm.
about it. She's like, I don't need to hear about, oh, I knew them when they were a little baby. Like, I don't need you
Yes.
don't
I
need to,
changed your diapers. No.
yeah, like you don't need to reiterate these points.
Yes, like you don't need to try to make it gross.
Yeah.
Like you can just let it be and that's it. Instead of being like, I
Mm.
remember you when you took your first steps. And you're like,
Yeah.
why? Gross. But anyway, that was a good one. That was a good discussion. I told Hannah I want to do Marriage of Convenience.
Mm.
I I love that one.
I actually like that one too.
I feel like people are gonna be like, we hate it.
I think it's gotten more popular.
I
I
like it. It's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, that was good. Thank you guys for spurring this conversation. I honestly didn't know if I had a lot to say, but we did.
Yeah,
So,
I
as
know.
usual. I just put me in front of a microphone and I will talk.
I know. I'm always like, I don't have anything to say, but then this and this and this. He's like, well, you clearly do because
Yeah, I'm always down to talk. Okay, so you can find me at Hilary Reads on Instagram.
and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And you can find our podcast at Don't You Two Read Podcast. And like I said last week, go check us out, follow us, rate our podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to us. That really helps us find the people that would want to listen to us. And go check out our stories because I'm going to be adding polls and I'm going to be adding a bunch of books for us to read this summer. And I think I'm going to make a little spinner. We're going to add all the books and then spin and be like, this is what we're reading. Hannah's like,
I know. I did not know this, but I'm
well,
but
we'll
I'm
we'll
interested.
we will approve the books that go on the spinner and then
Yeah.
spin. Bonus points if they are on Kindle Unlimited because then we can
Hmm.
just immediately get them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Happy summer reading, guys. Bye.
Bye.